Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Stop Mass Hysteria, Michael Savage.
You can definitely do it with an act of Congress, but now they're saying I can do it just with an executive order. We're the only country in the world where a person comes in, has a baby, and the baby is essentially a citizen of the United States for 85 years with all of those benefits. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it has to end.
Trump wants to end the anchor baby gimmick, the racket. Now, you may not know this. Many of you are kind-hearted. I'm the son of an immigrant. So your first instinct is, why not let them in? Why not let them all in? I mean, they're poor. And you fell for the propaganda of the Emma Goldman statement on the Statue of Liberty, which has been there since the early 1900s, where it said, give me you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry, and those yearning to be free. It sounds great. Now, my grandfather came through Ellis Island. I'm sure he may have heard about that. Give me you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry, and those yearning to be free. But you know, there was a difference then that I'm trying to get through to you. There's a big difference between now and then. And the difference is there was no welfare state then. There were no food stamps. The ACLU wasn't even a glint in the eye of the devil. There were no armies of lawyers trying to steal the benefits that should go to America's poor. Moreover, most of those coming through Ellis Island at the time of that saying being put on the Statue of Liberty were coming here to toil in the sweatshops of New York, in the steel mills of Pennsylvania, in the coal mines of Pennsylvania. They weren't coming here to sit on the behinds and drink beer and spit on the flag. They were coming here to work, and work they did. So there was a two-edged element to that. It was one, on the one hand, very liberal in its sentiments, but it was very cynical in its actualities. And so we now have a whole different world, a whole different government, a whole different economic system. And many of us have been saying it's time to end this loophole in the 14th Amendment. Now, I've heard all the arguments. You've heard them all, too. But I don't know if you heard the fact that, I don't know if you heard this, but there are more anchor babies in the United States than those being born in the United States. Anchor baby population in the U.S. exceeds 1 year of American births. This came out in Breitbart by John Binder. I don't know if you know the data. Anchor baby population in U.S. exceeds 1 year of American births. That's very alarming. Now, many of you are saying, well, what's wrong with you? Aren't you being rather nativist or racist? If you want to be Don Lemon, you could say that anyone who opposes a flood of illegal aliens into America is a racist because, as I said, he has the mentality of a refrigerator bulb. He can't think beyond about 5 watts. Now, if you love the anchor babies who are coming in, I don't understand something about this. What is it that you love so much? What is it that you love so much about flooding America with third worlders who are illiterate in their own nation, who are not bringing any of the skill sets that this nation needs, when we already have bums in the streets by the hundreds of thousands in this country? We have the poor in this country who are not being taken care of according to the left. So they want more poor? Where's the money supposed to come from? There's a limit to it. So we're going to talk about should Trump end birthright citizenship, meaning anchor babies. We're going to talk about something else that's not anything to do with immigration, which is the salaries of the obscene salaries of TV stars. You will never believe how much money these left-wing fanatics and liars make per episode. And they're all big liberals. Every one of them is a huge liberal. They make $100,000, $300,000 a segment of a series, and yet they won't give unknown actors a chance. They hog every part. They run from series to series, from Hulu to Apple. They're stealing all the money. Then we're going to talk about a little-known fact, which I saw today in USA Today, which is that the island nation of Jamaica is the rape capital of the Caribbean. One of the most serious problems that's being swept under the rug. That poor women are being raped down there in large numbers, and they should be forewarned. Now, before I do any of this, I want to invite you to call the show later on or whenever you want at 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. I want to invite you to go into a Barnes & Noble store and buy your relatives a book of sanity called Stop Mass Hysteria before the midterms, and frankly, it's not too late to awaken them to America's insanity, going back to the Salem witch trials. And before I do any of that, I have a real treat for you today, which is I've been talking about borders, language, and culture as my watchwords since I began in radio in 1994. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that I own the whole immigration subject, and I'm glad many, many others are now involved with it because it's long overdue. But when I began speaking about a nation is defined by its borders, language, and culture, it was unheard of at that time. No one had so clearly defined how a nation is defined until I came along. No one could do it. If you ask people how do you define what a nation is, they'll bumble around. They won't come up with anything as succinct as that. And when I came up with it in 94, when I just started in radio, it was revolutionary at the time. And so I want to play for you a short piece from the year 2010 where I talked about anchor babies. And I want you to listen carefully because a lot of what you're hearing on radio today from other shows, on podcasts, or thinking that it's all original comes directly from what I wrote over the years and what you're about to hear from the year 2010. Does anyone listening to this show know why there was a 14th Amendment that grants citizenship to anyone born in the United States? It was not for illegal aliens from Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, Brazil. It was to make sure that the children of slaves became citizens. It was fairness in its time. Right now, it is a nightmare, a national nightmare. Now, directors of the immigrant pressure groups, and it's interesting to me now that the Muslims have taken over some of these immigration forums because they would like to flood America with as many burqas as possible. So Ali Noorani, executive director of the National Immigration Forum, which is a front group for as many illegals as possible, said that eliminating birthright citizenship for the children of illegal immigrants would be a colossal mistake. Ali Noorani says it puts the United States of America on the brink of legalizing apartheid. I haven't any idea why he would say that, because this has nothing to do with apartheid. But the question is, after so many years of people like myself talking about the flood of illegal aliens into America, remember I founded this show circa 1994, and I coined the phrase borders, language, and culture, and now it's become something of a watchword for most people in radio. They understand that our borders have been destroyed by our government, that our language has been bastardized and destroyed by those who would turn us into a trilingual nation, where English becomes a minority language. And culture? What culture are you talking about? The American flag? They burn them. They spit on them. And now they say they're shocked to see prominent members of Congress suddenly embracing it, such as the so-called prominent Lindsey Graham, who is not as prominent as you may think. But nevertheless, I'm asking you, the audience of the Savage Nation, do you think that birthright citizenship should be eliminated? That's the show today. Rise seen in births to illegal dwellers. That's what the vermin at USA Today call illegal aliens. Now they're dwellers. How in the world you can call someone who snuck into a country, invaded a nation, and parasitizes it by taking free things that they're not entitled to a dweller? I don't know, unless you're insane. I wouldn't call them dwellers. I'd call them something else. And I've had enough of it. This debate on birthright citizenship has been long overdue. I've been waiting here since 1994 for this debate to finally percolate up to the average person. But now when I see it on the front page of the USAOA newspaper, I realize it's time for us to talk about it. Again, is it time for the 14th Amendment to go? Or should everyone who comes to America who drops a baby on our doorstep be entitled to have an anchor baby here? After all, they're children just like your children. They're all equal. Everyone's equal on earth. There should be no borders. Did you ever hear some of these liberals talk? You wouldn't believe what they're talking about. They don't know what the hell they're saying. There should be no borders, no language, and no culture. That's their idea of a perfect world. Well, it's not my idea of a perfect world. That's not what your ancestors fought and died for. It was not to see a man of the let us say, quality of Obama as president. A Congress as low and as lying and as corrupt as this one could never have occurred if we had a legitimate press in this country that acted in the way the press was supposed to act, which is as a watchdog for the average person, not as lapdogs for both parties. And that's where talk radio comes in. We are the watchdogs for America. Does it make us tough guys? No. It makes us guys that you need more than you may know. Because without us, what you'd have, I'll tell you exactly what you'd have. You would have less than a banana republic, were it not for people like Michael Savage willing to take the chances necessary to expose the corruption and greed in our government. And so I throw the question to you again. Is it time to get rid of the 14th Amendment? And no more birthright citizenship? Or what? Well, there's the question of the day. That's the number one question. Should Trump, through an executive order, and then, of course, we know that it will be challenged by one of the left-wing operatives in the court system. But here's the good news. Here's the good news. It'll go to the Supreme Court in a couple of years. And you want to hear the really good news? Now it's our Supreme Court. Isn't that a good feeling? And we've only just gotten started. Kavanaugh was just the beginning of the conservative majority. Do you realize over the next few years, it's highly probable that Trump will have at least one, perhaps two, more Supreme Court justices to place on the Supreme Court? It's our Supreme Court now. And I shall return.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. For many years, I've been warning the Savage Nation about a secret war on cash by big government and big tech to steal both your money and your privacy. Well, recent reports confirm that this war is expanding like wildfire, and time is running out to take action. Would you please not become the next victim in this battle? Please discover how to win the war to destroy your hard-earned savings. My good friends at Swiss America have detailed all the dirty little government secrets in their updated report. It's free. It's called The Secret War on Cash, Part 2. It's available now by calling 800-289-2646, 800-289-2646 for this important report, The Secret War on Cash. This documents real-life events such as banks refusing to cash checks, cash being confiscated from innocent citizens, and much, much more. Don't delay. Call now, 800-289-2646, and you will get your free copy of The Secret War on Cash Part 2. Call 800-289-2646 now. It is the Savage Nation. So, on the one hand, we're talking about probably the most serious issue of our time, which is the fact that the anchor baby population now exceeds the entire population of Los Angeles, California, and is roughly half the population of New York City. That's because of family chain migration. Family chain migration. And it was greatly escalated with the use of a pen and a phone by Barack Hussein Obama, who would not let any Europeans in by and large. He didn't want any people from Europe. He wanted as many people from Africa and the Middle East as he could get into this country. It's a sad fact of reality, but if you look at it from the point of view, rather how liberals are looking at Trump right now, if you look at what Obama did, could you say he didn't do it for any reasons other than the obvious? So Trump wants to end birthright citizenship. And, of course, it's going to go to the Supreme Court. But the good news, it is our Supreme Court now. And I'm taking a phrase that was used by a liberal comedian when Obama was president. And he looked up at the sky at the White House with all the other schleppers from Hollywood as there was a flyover by the U.S. Air Force. And one of the comedians looked up and said, "It's our Air Force now," because these are anti-military lefties from Hollywood who always hated the military. So one of them nudged him and said, "What do you think? It's our Air Force now." So it's our Supreme Court now. And Trump will easily get at least two more. Ruthie's going to soon get her reward because, God, the woman's, 90-something, 4? How old is she? Isn't she older than Dianne Feinstein? She's almost old enough to be Dianne Feinstein's mother. That's a joke. She couldn't have had her when she was 7, could she? I know she wants to lower the age of consent for sex to the age of 14. But they were getting away from the topic here. So I posted this on my Twitter feed, which I use it to test stories for my radio show. and I can pretty much tell what's going to work without Twitter. I did it for years without Twitter, but now I test them on Twitter. I know you don't want to hear that. And I put up, should Trump end Anchor Baby? Loophole was written as 14th Amendment only to give African slaves in the U.S. right to citizenship. So someone writes, it won't hold up in court. And I wrote, it's our Supreme Court now. So then here's what, I want you to just listen to the kind of stuff that comes up. It's fun sometimes. It's like playing checkers. When I no longer want to play mental chess and I need to slow down, I go on Twitter. When I want to remember what it was like to be a young person, 7 or 8 years old, I tweet. When I want to feel that I'm back in the 6th grade, I tweet. So someone writes, damn, Michael, usually you're better at hiding the authoritarian thug tendencies. Good for you, owning the complete lack of respect for the Constitution. So I wrote, well, your criminal dictator Obama sure liked the pen and the phone. You sure liked his thuggishness. You lost, we won. Get ready for the true America to reemerge. The silent majority will be silenced no longer. Then someone writes, your court. It led by the guy who upheld Obamacare twice. And I wrote, we now have Kavanaugh and 2 more likely. And one really foolish individual wrote, well, then when a Democratic president gets in, the Second Amendment is gone. Poorly thought out argument. I said, Dumbo, Supreme Court appointees are lifetime positions. So you see, when you want to feel like you're back in the 5th or 6th grade, there's no better way to regress than go on Twitter. And then you'll meet people at your mental level, 7th, 8th, 6th grade maybe. I'd say 11, about 11 or 12, about the same level as those who still go to Hollywood movies. Now, there's another element to this Anchor Baby situation, which is birth tourism. Oh, that's a big one. And you know which nationality is specializing in birth tourism? That's right. Your friends from Mao Zedong land. Chinese flock to USA to give birth to U.S. citizens. Business is booming here for companies that coach pregnant women on how to deceive U.S. immigration authorities so they can enter the United States for the sole purpose of giving birth to American citizens. At least 500 companies offered birth tourism services in China. The Shanghai newspaper National Business Daily reported. The cost of a trip, including medical expenses, runs from $20,000 to $80,000. The business is legal in China, but the tactics for entering the USA are not. The women are coached to lie about the purpose of their visit by listing tourism, which makes it easier to get a visa. They're also told to hide their pregnancies when going through U.S. immigration and avoid declarations that they're traveling for medical treatment. And so, back in 2015, California authorities raided dozens of maternity hotels for Chinese women in Orange, Los Angeles, and San Bernardino counties for alleged immigration and tax fraud. But that was in 2015. That was long before Moonbeam became even moonier. That's long before Moonbeam became even more moonier. Extra, hear all about it. Anchor Baby population in U.S. exceeds 1 year of American births. Well, to the progressive, they can't get enough of the third world into America. And you know what bewilders me? Why do they want to create competition for America's most vulnerable? You know, the left always tells us that we have to take care of America's most vulnerable. Well, we do, and we have for a very long time. But why would you want to create competition for America's most vulnerable? Why would you seek immigrants who have no skills that the country needs, nor any capital to invest in creating a business? It means they're going to be wards of the state. Or they're going to take jobs at the lowest end of the job scale, lowering wages even further, hurting the poor and the vulnerable even more. And, of course, that's one of the reasons Republicans want them here. I mean, if you think this is a partisan issue, you're mistaken. I've seen through this charade a long time ago. I wrote about it in Government Zero. And, in fact, I disclosed for you in Government Zero, that was a book, a few books before Stop Mass Hysteria, about zero immigration. It's in paperback, by the way. Yes, you can still buy it. And, yes, you should still have it in your library. Because one day there will be no Michael Savage, and the wisdom of the Savage mind will be there forever in the writings. And they're not limited by time. But there's a piece in the chapter of Government Zero on illegal immigration for profit. And I talked not only about the progressive grifters who make fortunes off it, but guess what? I talked about those on the right who are making a fortune off it. We know about Catholic Charities. We know about Baptist Family Services. We know about the other religious organizations that are running basically a religion-incorporated racket to bring in illegal aliens. Huge federal grants to house illegals. But you don't know about companies that are named RFP, request for proposal, an RFP. I know who applied for the RFPs. And some of them are long-term contractors with federal agencies, and they're considered right-wingers. But they're not right-wingers. They're just grifter-wingers. Now, we all heard about the $32 aspirin in hospitals. That's nothing compared to what these companies are making on the facilities that are being built for the illegal aliens. And one of them is connected to the same companies that run prisons for profit. You get the picture? Now, only I dug into the particulars of one such company making a profit off the immigrant surge. It's called the GEO Group. Who are they? I'm the only one in the American media who took the time out to look into it. In the past 6 years, GEO was awarded nearly $880 million in ICE contracts alone. Now, this book was published. I got to go back and tell you when this book was published in 2015. So by then, they were already grifting out a fortune. Are you ready for the rest? I found out who is the parent company of GEO Corporation, Wackenhut Corporation, which owns a lot of private prisons and funded the American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC. ALEC is a lobbying group. Well, you can read the rest yourself, because once you read it, you'll find out why not only the progressives, but also the corporate welfare types on the Republican side are anxious for more immigrants rather than fewer, and particularly the illegal kind. And it's all in my writings. I did the research. I did all the heavy lifting and research for you on that one. So now Trump suddenly wakes up before the midterms, and he has a good advisor. I don't know who told him to do this, but he did the right thing, and he gave his base the red meat that we need. I'm speaking the way the progs are looking at it. It's okay. We got the red meat that we need, and he's targeting birthright citizenship with an executive order. So it's like, oh, wow, he threw them a red meat. Well, that's what all politicians do. They throw their base red meat. So, for example, what would Hillary throw? What would the red meat she would throw? Something about hating America, hating white people, particularly white males, and things like that. She was doing it regularly, thinking that it was like taking. It wasn't taking. Trump calls birthright citizenship ridiculous, plans to sign executive order. We know it's an attempt to rile up the base and get you out to vote and stuff like that. But that's a given. This is in CNBC.com. Trump targets birthright citizenship in his latest attempt to rile up the GOP base, says Jacob Pramuk of CNBC. Jacob Pramuk. And his tax and immigration proposals, which appear to have caught even some of his allies off guard, seem designed to boost Republicans as they try to hold control of the House and Senate. Some of his plans appear less than feasible with Congress out of Washington. Well, it's okay, but at least we're talking about it now, and it will go to the Supreme Court. He could use the pen like Obama did. When I say Obama, that's kind of nice, leaving the A off it. Obama. The man who bombed America with his left-wing policies. Obama used the phone and the pen with delight, with glee. And so Trump is trying to light a spark to hold on to the House. And we'll see what happens, whether this will get the eddies out there. I don't know if you'll go out and vote this time. I don't want to even speculate whether you're going to vote or not vote. That's kind of second grade. I don't know what you're going to do. It's your decision. But I want to go back to the issue of birth tourism, mainly the Chinese having 500 companies that bring women here to have a baby here because they're skirting the law. And we're going to talk about anchor babies. Trump at least is talking about ending it in a challenge to the 14th Amendment, which is a good story to talk about. And it's a very real story. We know what the scholars are saying, which is that it will go to the courts, and we know that the left-wing courts will say, no, he's wrong, and then it'll go to the Supreme, and they will probably side with Trump. Even at this court, even this court right now would likely side with Trump. You know, now, by the time it gets to the court, I think there'll be at least one, maybe two more middle-of-the-road conservatives in there. What they did to Kavanaugh, I don't know who would even want the job. right now. I can't imagine it would try to take, after Dianne Feinstein got through with Kavanaugh, I don't think there's a lawyer in America who would want to go through that. So who knows? Who knows who would take that chance? But, I could really rile you up if I said we're only opening lines up to nurses and doctors who are listening to this show, whether it be in New York or California or Texas. Why don't you tell us what you see going on in your emergency rooms? Tell us what they're doing to abuse the healthcare system. Or I could say, if you're a teacher, tell us what it's doing to the illiteracy rate in this country. Look, let's be clear. I'm a former teacher. I'm the son of an immigrant. Very important points for you to remember. The fact of the matter is the literacy rate of America has plummeted since Obama opened up the floodgates to third worlders who are illiterate in their own language. This is something I cannot emphasize enough. We are not even bringing in people who are literate in their own language. They're illiterate in their home country. They cannot read or write. Most of them cannot read or write in their own language. Do you know that? Are you aware that we are culling from the bottom of all the societies on earth? We're not seeking even moderately educated people from these countries to come here with some literacy. We are getting people in who have no literacy. Now, how does that benefit this nation? I don't care if you're a progressive woman who runs a corporation or whatever you may be. I'm trying to imagine a very wide net of listeners. It's not that narrow. It's not as narrow as you may think. How does that benefit a nation? Now, where is your argument on that? I know. Give me you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry, and those yearning to be free. So I'll repeat it again. That noble phrase written by Emma Goldman, I believe, and on the statue, Emma Lazarus. Always confuse the two. I wish Lazarus was Goldman because Goldman was thrown out of the country. Goldman was deported for being a real no-goodnik. That's when people could still be deported. Emma Goldman was thrown out of America for opposing the World War, I think World War I. This was Emma Lazarus? Lazarus, okay. Lazarus, Lapis Lazuli. Emma Lapis Lazuli. Give us you're tired, you're poor, and you're hungry, those yearning to be free. Now, let's pause there for a moment before we all get so agitated that we lose our lunch. Again, I got to tell you, this is so important to know. Back 3-4 years ago, I was on a yacht moored in the west side of New York on the Hudson River in the Chelsea district. And I gave a little party for people from my radio business and people from my publishing world. About 100 people came aboard for a cocktail party. And I gave a little speech, which I've played on the show twice over the years, because I'm so proud of it. And I think it's called An Immigrant's Son Arrives in New York Again, something like that. And I stood on that yacht and I looked at the Statue of Liberty right down the Hudson River, where Sully years later would save those people on his plane. You know the Hudson River, named for old Henry Hudson, that evil white male who they named the river for. Maybe they could rename the Hudson River. Maybe Seal River or something like that, because it may offend people. Down the Hudson River, there's the Statue of Liberty. And I pointed to it, and I gave some remarks to the audience. I hope that they understood what I was saying. That only in America could the son of an immigrant, meaning me, be here on this boat when my grandfather came here on steerage. Steerage, third class, fourth class. They came in no better than most animals. And they were sick for most of the voyage. And they got off the boat with very little in their pockets. But they had a skill or a trade. They had people to take care of them. They were usually taken care of by relatives who were waiting for them in the city of their arrival. There was no welfare waiting for them, or they wouldn't have gotten in the country. If they had no means of support, you didn't get in here. So the rest is a story. He opened a little tailor shop. He probably worked for someone for a while. And then he was so good and so skilled at what he was doing, as I was told years later. I never met him. He died at 39 or 40. I don't know how old. He died young, killing himself here in this country. Very sad. I wish I had known him. But he's the astronaut of the family. Sam. I call him the astronaut of the family in one of my books. So this guy opens a tailor shop, and he becomes so well known in New York, mainly amongst the wise guys, I heard. I don't know. I heard the story. They all had their suits made by him. You know how they always like nice suits down there on the east side in those days? The gangsters. Anyway, he made suits for them. He didn't give them away. He charged them. And he made the suits, and then he died of a heart attack. God bless him. So what I'm saying to you is I have sympathy for those wanting to come here and make a better life for themselves. I know what it's like to want something and work for it. But I also know what it's like to want something, work for it, and then be destroyed in this country by social engineers. Remember that phrase? It was popular about 5 years ago. Remember the social engineering that we used to talk about 5 years ago on the radio? Well, we have the social engineers still at work. And if you have ever been attacked by the left-wing social engineers because you're a white male, you'll know what I'm talking about. And that means you had your birthright stolen from you by the ACLU, as I originally did. But they didn't know what they were dealing with me. Oh, if they only knew who I really was and what I had inside of me, they never would have stood in my way. Because all I would have been was some nice professor at one of the universities, long retired. No one would have heard of me. But look what they created. And look what happened as a result of the fact that you can't keep a good man down.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-280. Tell you the truth about most home security companies. They're like dealing with another bad cable company, right? You're going to sit around your house, wait for technicians, and then spend hours on the phone saying they didn't even come. And then when you're at your wit's end and you want to get out, sorry, you're in a 3-year contract. You don't need that. No one does. If you're looking to protect your home, go with Simply Safe Home Security. They're the best at what they do. Simply Safe is real. It's comprehensive. Every window, door, and room in your home will be protected. The system is beautifully designed to look good in your home. You'll actually want to use it, and you can install it yourself. So listen to me. Using Simply Safe makes your home safer. It's that simple. They put in backups in case, let's say, you lose power, you lose your internet connection, or someone attacks the system. They have backups in the system. Best of all, you get 24/7 monitoring with police and fire dispatch for just $15 a month. And unlike other home security companies, Simply Safe has no long-term contract. It's the best around-the-clock protection, period. Protect your home today. Please do this now. Get free shipping, free returns. Go to simplysafesavage.com, simplysafesavage.com. And now, back to the news. We're talking about President Trump vowing to end birthright citizenship in a challenge to the 14th Amendment. We understand that this is the red meat to his base, but it's opening up a discussion on this very important topic, and many people are learning for the first time that the 14th Amendment was written solely to grant citizenship to Africans who were here as slaves. That's what it was written for. It was never the intent to bring in millions and millions of people of non-citizen babies, never. And now you have whole industries of visitors who are giving birth here just to become citizens so they can bring in the whole family. At the risk of your displeasure, I'm going to read one paragraph from Stop Mass Hysteria, and I'm going to ask you questions about it. You're going to get a little midterm exam. We must not listen to the hysterics who are screaming that you can't separate children from their families. We must not allow the forces at work to entice us into an emotional compromise. We need to have the guts to stand up and say, I'm sorry, but the lifeboat is full. We have to take care of our own poor first. You know that these two lines are worth your giving this book to let's say someone in your family doesn't really know the arguments. I'm sorry, but the lifeboat is full. We have to take care of our own poor first. When we detain people at our border with or without children, we must say, you're going home. We're giving you a care package. We'll give you clothing. But you just can't come in. The lifeboat is full. That's how you stop illegal immigration. That is how you support your national sovereignty. That is how you support your nation's identity. Now take a step back, I write, and ask yourself, why don't the Democrats care about national sovereignty and integrity? Because the agenda of the Democrats and open borders advocates is to push to finish the job and make open borders illegal as opposed to only the de facto status quo. Why? More illegals means millions of additional reliable votes for Democrats in their plan to make the United States a one-party socialist country, such as what they have achieved in the state of California in less than 2 decades, as the result of the invasion of illegals, most of whom can now vote.
The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Stop Mass Hysteria, Michael Savage.
I'm not picking this for any kind of subliminal fun song for our times are so tough right now, emotionally. People are cracking from it, the shootings in Pittsburgh. And I did a show yesterday that was hard for me, and it was probably the best I could ever do. I brought the wisdom of the ages and the compassion of the saints to that program yesterday, and yet hateful progs continue to send hateful messages to me on Twitter and Facebook. You can't change these progs. They're evil. And it has nothing to do with compassion, the progs. It's just filled with vitriol. That's all they have. Their whole M.O. is vitriol. Vitriol. I played the Kaddish, the Jewish prayer for the dead, in memory of those slaughtered in Pittsburgh. I told you that a small group of leftist fanatics in Pittsburgh are telling the president he is not welcome, thereby, again, stirring up anti-Semitism around America, because now most people who don't understand the whole story do not realize that the chief rabbi of that synagogue did invite the president. Instead, the progs made believe they spoke for the Jewish people of Pittsburgh, once again fanning the flames of racism. I did that yesterday. So today we're talking about a totally different topic. Should Trump end the anchor baby loophole? Was written as 14th Amendment only to give African slaves a U.S. right to citizenship. Now, the 14th Amendment defines what it means to be a U.S. citizen, and it frankly protects certain rights of the people. There are three important clauses in the 14th Amendment: the Citizenship Clause, the Due Process Clause, the Equal Protection Clause. I'm not going to read all of them to you. You can read them yourself, and you can study this for yourself. The important thing to remember is that this amendment was never intended to grant citizenship to the children of non-citizens. Never. Never was it amended to do so. And it allows all people born in the U.S. to be U.S. citizens. Now, you may say, well, that's what this is. But that's not what its intention was. This right was established by the Civil Rights of 1866, and it made the law permanent, as many fear that the law could be overturned and take away the citizenship of African Americans. Now, later on, the Supreme Court protected this right for the children of immigrants, and the right of Native Americans to become citizens, also protected later on. See, once you have American citizenship, it cannot be taken from you by Congress or other authorities, unless you lie to the government during the process of becoming a U.S. citizen. Otherwise, everyone who becomes a U.S. citizen stays an American citizen unless they give it up themselves. So I understand that this is coming up because Trump wants to excite his base to go out and vote. That's a good thing. It's also forcing people in the middle to actually think about it when they realize that the anchor babies in America, the anchor baby population in America now exceeds the entire population of Los Angeles, California, and is roughly half the population of New York City, and might open up the eyes even of progs with children. I wouldn't expect progs without children to care much about this. All they care about is drugs, sex, and rock and roll, and maybe to buy weed and sneakers. Which leads me to it's almost a side note. Every time I talk to someone in the media, whether it's in TV or radio or the movies, they all say they only care about the millennial audience. And I say to them, let me ask you something. Why do you cater to the millennials? They don't have any money except to buy weed and sneakers. It's the older audience that buys all the stuff that you advertise on radio and television. You're telling me the vegan, weed-smoking, sneaker-wearing millennial is going to buy a car, a refrigerator, a steak, a gold coin? They're not going to buy. Why do you keep appeasing and appealing to them? Why? The answer is because they hire millennials to run the ad agencies. So they appeal only to their own age group, without realizing that their age group can only buy weed and sneakers. So I welcome all of you who can buy more than Weedas sneakers to this discussion. It's for adults only. If you'd rather stay on the 6th or 7th grade level, you can go to Twitter. If you really want to go down to feeling like a child again and sucking on your thumb, you can go to Facebook and communicate that way. You'll be back in the 1st grade. But if you care to have an adult conversation, the phone number is 855-400-7282. Should Trump end birthright citizenship, anchor babies? Jamaica, rape capital of the Caribbean. I don't even know if I have the guts to read that one. It's so heartbreaking to hear what's happening to girls down there. And you know, you hear about this stuff and you don't want to pay much attention to it. It's frightening to how out of control it is down there. Jamaica resort's facing a historic sexual assault problem. That's a really... And where did I get this story? Why, it was from that right-wing racist newspaper, USA Today. See, if it comes from USA Today, which is about as left-wing as you're going to get, the USA Today newspaper says Jamaica resort's facing an historic sexual assault problem. And it's frightening if you read that story. I put it on michaelsavage.com because I want to forewarn you to watch out. You know, just go in there with your eyes open. And what's most alarming for tourists is that the sexual assaults are occurring inside gated resorts. The place they are led to believe that they're most safe. For example, this year, the beach's Ocho Rios Resort and Golf Club, where the lifeguard assaults occurred in 2015, was given the Traveler's Choice Award by TripAdvisor. It's the travel group's highest recognition given to the top 1% of hotels. I am only quoting the article. Do not blame me for the bad news. By the way, this is the same Jamaica that the U.S. State Department has repeatedly warned tourists about. This is the island paradise that the government says has a pervasive sexual assault problem. This is the place where 2 Detroit women were raped in September, and an estimated 1 American is raped every month. I want to read you one story about this story because it's actually amazing what went on there. It's a terrifying story, and it's worth talking about in this age of Me Too. I want people to be aware about the historic sexual assault problem. It came out in the Detroit Free Press, published October 30th. That would be today at 7 a.m. by Teresa Baldas. And it was triggered by the rape of 2 Detroit women. It's a sickening story. In a dark laundry room at a Jamaican Sandals resort, pinned to the floor by a hotel lifeguard, a Michigan teenage girl lay paralyzed with fear as the man bit her lip and raped her, violently robbing her virginity. When her mother found her after the assault, trembling and holding herself in a hallway, the 17-year-old couldn't speak. She could only point to a metal door. Behind the door, her friend was being gang raped by 3 resort lifeguards. This is the Jamaica that the U.S. State Department has repeatedly warned tourists about. Over the past 7 years, 78 U.S. citizens have been raped in Jamaica, according to the State Department. The victims include a mentally handicapped woman in her 20s, an Indiana mother gang raped by 3 Cuban soccer players in a resort bathroom stall, a 20-year-old woman raped by 2 men in her hotel, 2 Detroit mothers raped at gunpoint in their room, a Kent County teenager and a 20-year-old friend gang raped by lifeguards in a locked laundry room at the resort where they were staying. And then they go on and tell you the rest of the stories, which is bad enough. The 2 Detroit victims knew none of this when they booked their trip to Jamaica. They were raped at gunpoint on September 27th at the 5-star hotel Rio Reggae in Montego Bay, allegedly by a hotel employee who had worked there just 3 days. Now, this is a crazy story as you read the story. I want to get to the point where the gun part of it here. When the Detroit women booked their reservation at Hotel Rio Reggae, they didn't know about the survey either. They looked forward to their island getaway and enjoyed it until the last day of their vacation when a gunman burst into their room through their balcony and demanded money. The women said they had no cash and threw credit cards on the bed. He cocked the gun and said, this is a gun. Go turn the lights off or I'm going to kill you. One of the victims told the Free Press. The lights went off. He raped them both, they said, until one of the women got hold of the gun and shot him twice. He was arrested the next day and is facing charges. She got his gun and shot this piece of trash twice. I'm surprised that the Jamaican authorities didn't arrest the woman for shooting the rapist. So, thank God. The Detroit victims said the police were helpful, but the hotel seemed dismissive. Be forewarned. One of the victims shot Dow, who jumped from a hotel balcony and fled. You hear this? They came in through a balcony? Can you imagine anything like this going on when you're on vacation, when you're most vulnerable? You think you're, easy going with the music, with the guitar and the this. You're eating at night and, the whole thing, the drinking, relax, walking in the sand. Terrible thing. So, I'm just trying to tell you this is a very, very dangerous world that we have out there, in case you don't know it. Last year, Jamaica was ranked the third most dangerous country for female travelers by Skyscanner, a California-based travel research company. Guess which countries topped the list as the most dangerous countries for female travelers? Attention, hippie women. Egypt and Morocco topped the list. Anyway, just a side note. I mean, we're going to talk mainly about the other subject. I thought I would throw this in because, you got to be forewarned where you're going. Now, if you're a nurse and you work in a hospital and you see the illegal aliens abusing the hospitals, I will ask you to call. Here's another story I didn't get to. Not that mobster Whitey Bulger was killed behind bars. That's a given. It was only a matter of time. Reportedly slain at West Virginia prison after transfer. Wheeled away from security cameras by 3 inmates with mafia ties. Oh, they wait, man. Oh, you don't want to mess with those guys. They wait 20 years, you're going to get it. Just watch your P's and Q's. That's all I can say. They got this guy. I mean, that's not the story that caught my... The other one was this: Mueller accuses opponents of offering women money to make false claims about him. Refer scheme to FBI. This is going to blow up Thursday. A lawyer is having a press conference Thursday with a woman who claims Mueller molested her. And now look what's how this is going around. You wouldn't think this, would you? You see, what goes around comes around. What goes around comes around. I got to go around to a quick commercial break, and I'll be back for your listening pleasure right here on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Take 1 atom of nitrogen and bond it with 1 atom of oxygen. Boom, you just created nitric oxide, a miracle molecule your own body makes that fuels your cardiovascular health, keeping you vibrant. But as we all age, our bodies need help generating more natural nitric oxide. Super Beets by Human has harnessed the power of nutrient-enriched beets and created a superfood that helps your body make more nitric oxide on its own. The core philosophy of Human is to develop heart-healthy products for your body. 1 teaspoon of Super Beets daily tends to support your cardiovascular health and blood pressure levels, giving you natural energy without the need of a quick caffeine kick or sugar high. We're talking real, healthful, natural energy. So call 800-481-0504 or go to SavageLovesBeats.com and find out how you can get a free 30-day supply of Super Beets and free shipping with your first purchase. I want you to feel the 1 + 1 = boom effect of Super Beets. Just call 800-481-0504 or SavageLovesBeats.com. Poor people of Paris. I sing this when I was a little poor boy. Certain songs touched me, Interesting. Standing in the slush waiting for the Q44A to go to high school. I heard that Abraham Lincoln walked 7 miles to school every day and encouraged me to stand there in the cold and slush to get to high school. I mean, I dreamed of having a car in Southern California and having fun, but no, I had to work, jobs, whatever. One of my hobbies is old sports cars. I have 2 old Jaguars, an XKE 1970, which I take care of. I've had it rebuilt. I have an XK 150 1961. They're not particularly valuable. What's valuable, you won't believe what's going on. You want to talk about a 2-tiered economy. You got people starving in the world trying to come in here. A 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO sold for $48 million at auction. A 1935 Duesenberg SSJ sold for $22 million. I'm giving you some numbers you probably don't even read about in the newspapers that I know about because I study the magazines. A 1963 Aston Martin DP 215 Grand Touring prototype sold for $21 million. A 1937 Mercedes 540K sold for $3.2 million. That was chicken change. I've never seen numbers like this in my life. A 62 Ferrari GTO sold for $48 million. You're like, what in the world? Where did these cars go? 1962 Ferrari sets public auction record at $48 million. This is so out of the ken of the average, even car owner, whatever you may own, right? Let's say you buy a new this, a new that. Whoever heard of numbers like this for cars? They're more than a private jet, these prices. And Porsches, old Porsches, if you get the right one, I never saw numbers like this in my life. To me, they're nothing but a rust bucket, most Porsches. They make so much noise, sounds like you're driving in a machine shop. Why anyone would want one, I don't understand. They don't advertise, do they? No, I'm not a millennial. It's funny, like car companies only advertise on millennial shows who can't buy anything. They buy sneakers and weed. I don't understand that. Ferrari 250 GTO, what a number. So you say the poor people of Paris. 1972 Porsche 911 RS Outlaw sold at $184,000. That's not that much. I read this a lot in the bathroom, these car magazines. Gets my mind off politics. If I can't sleep, I get up and read a car magazine. It's another universe, just another universe. Drove the 150 over the weekend. It's a tough car to drive because there's no synchromesh in the gears. The XK is synchro in all four gears. It's smooth. Do you know what it's like to drive one of those cars? Like a truck, like an ice cream truck. I don't know how people drove them. They were considered wild cars in their day. Every gear, you got to feel your way into the gear or you could break a tooth. I don't mean in your mouth. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's get back to business here. All right, Savage, get back to work here. Cut the garbage. Get back to the immigration stuff. That's what we want to hear. Don't tell me nothing about no cars. We don't want to hear it. Miriam on WABC. You're a bleeding heart liberal. Go ahead, please. You're on the Savage Nation.
No, I'm not a bleeding heart liberal. I happen to be a Republican. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a fan of thousands coming across the border, okay? I just wanted to say, because you had said about social engineering and about, affirmative action in those days when you didn't get to, the education that you had wanted at the time. So the same way.
No, I got the education. I killed myself to get my PhD and 2 master's degrees, and they wouldn't hire me because I was a white male. That's what I said.
Okay. Yes. Okay, but whatever it was the affirmative action, okay?
Yes, it was affirmative action that they shafted me with, yes.
So that was social engineering. So I just wanted to give their perspective is that maybe they don't want an education because they're not your type. You're a different type than these guys that are wanting to come across the border. And maybe they're victims of social engineering just as you were back then.
What do you mean, victims of what? I don't understand what you mean. They're coming here to better themselves. Let's say they're illiterate in their own language. They can't read or write Spanish, okay? And they want to come here so they can work, let's say, even though that's not true for most. Not everyone comes here to work. I mean, let's be clear, Miriam. But let's say that's what they want to come here for. Don't you understand that drives wages down for people who are doing construction or in hotels? It actually lowers the wage for poor people, Miriam.
I said.
And by the way, Miriam, that benefits some of the richest people in America who own these hotel chains. And so it's across the board. It's not just Pragues who are benefiting from the massive wave of immigrants. It's also people on the other side who run the service industry.
We have to stop demonizing people and realize the biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right. And we have to start doing something about them. There is no travel ban on them. There's no ban on, they have the Muslim ban. There is no white guy ban. So what do we do about that?
Now stop the music for 1 minute. I want you to listen to me carefully. Not only is this man stupid, Don Lemon, he's a racist and dangerous. Jeff Zucker is his boss. Jeff Zucker has not yet reined in racists like Don Lemon who hate white people at CNN. Even after the Pittsburgh massacre, we have implored these evil men in the media, like Jeff Zucker at CNN, but he's not alone. These men gloat and cheer while their marionettes stir up hatred, racial hatred. Why does this man have a job? Not only is he stupid, but now the man is saying there's no white man ban in America. This is on CNN, and the biggest threat in this country is white men. Don Lemon, not only dumb, but dangerous and a clear racist. And yet Jeff Zucker, as his boss, has the power to stop him. The holding company that owns Jeff Zucker. After all, everyone reports to someone. Everyone in this world reports to someone above them. Why is Jeff Zucker still employed? This is after Pittsburgh, after the slaughter, because a deranged man went and killed these innocent Jews, slaughtered them mercilessly. I said everyone needs to cool it. Everyone needs to calm down. Everyone needs to stop triggering the other side. I said, Jeff Zucker particularly, you understand that your marionettes are triggering people into these violent acts. What happens the very next day, the dumbest man on his chorus line has the nerve to say the biggest threat in this country is white men. And we have to start doing something about them. Now, if you're one of those white men he's talking about, someone who has guns, someone who's seething with rage, someone who is poor, someone who's on the bottom, someone who's just at the end of your tether, your blood's boiling, you don't know which way to turn, you don't know what to do, and you hear this on television, and you know that Jeff Zucker has the power to fire this man and doesn't. What does it do to you? I pray to God it doesn't do to you what it did to that lunatic in Pittsburgh. Take it out on some innocent people. I pray that there is somebody above Jeff Zucker who can rein in this evil sack of human protoplasm. How do you let people say things like that on television? Can you imagine if I, Michael Savage, said something like that about any race whatsoever, what would happen to me? Can you imagine the fallout from the advertising agencies, the wonderful radio company I'm with? I would never say a thing like that. We understand what that does. It provokes such rage and hatred in people that it can only lead to violence. And yet Jeff Zucker does this on a regular basis with his marionettes on CNN. Forget about Donald Trump for 1 minute, if you don't mind. Not only is this unjustified, not only is this untrue, this is the most racist thing I've ever heard in my life. And yet, this low-watt bulb still has his job. Both him and his boss should be sent out to pasture. But no, who owns CNN? Who's the holding company? Who's the hedge fund that owns CNN that Jeff Zucker collects all that money from? He's not yet reined in racists who hate whites on CNN. That's even after the Pittsburgh massacre. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Now, add to this toxic brew the armies that have joined together south of the border and are yearning to break through our borders and enter this country because they want to enter the land of milk and honey. Okay. Now, the good news on this is that the mobs have been slowed down in Mexico. A lot of them just are going home. Mexico didn't really do the job they were supposed to do with them. But there's a good news here. The illegal immigrants are being put on buses, by the way, for comfy rides through Mexico. I don't know if you know that. They're no longer trudging. Now, who's paying for the buses? Could it be old Georgie and his son, Alex? What about this caravan of 10,000, 20,000 ragtag migrants? Who's paying for bus rides now to the border? Who's ever paying for those bus rides is an enemy of our way of life. They are trying to invade the nation. The only good news is that the caravan, so-called, is slowing down on its own momentum. It's running out of steam. A lot of the people are just going home for a number of reasons. And it's mainly because we have a president, to his credit, who is willing to stand up and say enough is enough. We're sending the military to the border. We've sent the National Guard to the border. And that's it. You're not coming in. Forget about it. You're just not getting in here. That's what he was elected to do. For that reason alone, Donald Trump is doing a great job. I mean, let's be clear here. You know, it's easy to say he's not doing everything right, but given the opposition here, it's lucky he's still in the position that he's in. That's that. So apparently they're not going to get through this country into this country so easily. And the rodeo that was expected around our polling places may not be conducted as the left wants. So they're slowing down. And apparently they're being turned back. Some are going back on their own. That's the good news. And let's see, what else is going on? The Pittsburgh thing is not over with. The president is arriving in Pittsburgh shortly. And the left-wing anti-American creeps had the nerve to make believe that those Jews, these left-wing fanatics of this Bend the ARC group, funded by Alexander Soros, no less, speaks for all Jewish people in Pittsburgh or America. It's sickening because it only stirs up anti-Semitism. Because when you start to make believe that your small band of Marxists, New World Order, One World Order, however you want to be defined, you anti-Americans on the left, you make believe you speak for all Jewish people, and you don't. There are many, many conservative Jewish people who were never heard from by the vermin in the media. And yet what you do by speaking for the Jewish people when you don't, making believe you do, is you stir up anti-Semitism. And yet they want you to believe that all of Pittsburgh's Jewish community doesn't want Trump there. The exact opposite is true. And he's on the way there. And I pray to God that these left-wing fanatics funded by Alexander Soros just cool it today and don't make a mockery of yourselves and pretend that you speak for the Jews in Pittsburgh when you get there saying you're not welcome. I pray to God that you just for a few minutes have respect for the dead and don't use their dead bodies as fuel for your horrendous agenda against the president and against most Americans, by the way. Just give it a break for a day. Can you do that? Survivors huddled in closet during synagogue attack. Terrible story. I guess I should throw in what I said yesterday. I spent 3 hours on this. Self-defense, 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 self-defense. Christians, Jews, must learn how to use weapons. They must learn to defend themselves. I know it's a shocking thing to say in a liberal democracy like ours. Oh, well, we're not that kind of nation. Well, you would like not to be that kind of nation, but we are. You need to learn to defend yourself. The Israelis learned that it can't just be done with love. They learned to have a Torah in one hand and an Uzi in the other. That's why they developed the Uzi submachine gun. They learned they needed a gun in one hand. So the chief rabbi, by the way, of Israel was a paratrooper at the time. Remember that story? He would parachute out of a plane into a battle zone with a machine gun in his hand and a Bible in the other. He learned, he understood what it meant. And so when we're going to learn, I don't know, when the average liberal in America comes to understand that someone else is not going to defend you, you have to defend yourself. Maybe they wouldn't have to huddle in a closet. Maybe they could learn that they have to defend themselves, as terrible as that may sound. And if they don't want to do it, then they have to hire armed guards. I've been trying to warn people about this since 1982, 81. It's only a matter of time, I said. You're just throwing the dice, sitting there like, just waiting for a maniac to come in. And it's happened before. In the past, it was Islamic fanatics who killed Jews, mercilessly chopped them up and slaughtered them. Remember the Mumbai disaster? Do you remember that one? But because it was in India, you know, it came and went. This one hit home because it was a white man who did it, a crazed Nazi type. And so it fits the liberal agenda. They've got someone to hate that they can hate with all their hearts. When it was a Muslim who did it against the Jews, they didn't fit the agenda that well, and so they had to let it go a little bit. They didn't focus so much on the perpetrators. I mean, as near as the slaughter in the gay nightclub, they didn't focus on it. The other slaughters, they just always look the other way because it doesn't fit the left-wing agenda. I mean, it's that clear if you're looking at it with open eyes. You know, it's hard to have open eyes, open heart with all these news stories, and you take it in, you do it for a living. It's very difficult. I had a tough time over the weekend after this happened. It hit me very close and very hard. And I brought everything that I could to the table yesterday. But today we're talking about something that's entirely different, which is we're not talking about so much about the gangsters hidden in the women and children in the caravan, of which we know there are several. Everyone knows that. I mean, if you were a gangster, how would you come into the country? You'd hide? What, would you walk in and say, I'm a gangster and I want to deal drugs in America? You'd get in the line there with the thousands of them, with the women and children. You having them push the carriages in front of you. And you get the sympathy of the American people and say, oh, they're all just wanting to come here. They're all poor. That's how you would do it. So it's slowing down on its own. Momentum is slowing down, the momentum. And that's because the president is speaking for most American people. You may not know this. Forget the liars in the media who do this to incite hatred. Every poll, one after the other, no matter what the state, shows that the largest majority of Americans, even liberals, do not want open borders. They do not. This is a small percentage of radical fanatics funded largely by the billionaires like George Soros. I guess I'm not allowed to mention his name anymore. Suddenly he's a victim all of a sudden. After victimizing America for all these years with all of his money, suddenly he's the victim. He funds, let's see, Antifa. He's funded Black Lives Matter. He's funded Occupy groups. To me, that's not American, by the way. That's quite something else. And he was thrown out of Hungary. He's not welcome in many European countries, old Georgie Soros, because he's trying to destroy their sovereignty as well. They can't all be Nazis. What, every Hungarian now who loves their own country is a Nazi? According to who? George Soros? They threw him out of Hungary for what he tried to do to that country. They closed his universities in some countries because of the hate he was preaching against nationalities, against the nation and nationalism. And then there's another thing I said yesterday that should not be lost in the ether of the airwaves. It's about so-called white nationalists. That's the new boogeyman, white nationalist. Just say white and nationalist together, and immediately you have a boogeyman you can hate, right? If you live in a liberal community, it's white nationalist together. It feels good when you say it, doesn't it? What is a white nationalist? Is that too broad a statement? White nationalist. So if you're white and you believe in America and America's sovereignty, what, you're a Nazi now? So look at every cross in every war memorial cemetery. You're going to see an awful lot of white nationalists in there going back to the Revolutionary War. See, a lot of them were white. Most of them were white in the cemeteries, as a matter of fact, in our military cemeteries. Just population was and is. And the military was comprised largely of white people. Let's go back to World War II just for a minute. So most of the men who were enlisted to fight, many of them were fighting because they loved America. Not all, but many were. And so they fought. Why? Well, they were nationalists. They loved America. And they didn't want to speak German. It's that simple. So what? They're white nationalists too? So, define your terms a little clearer. What do you mean, white nationalist? What does that actually mean? Not every white person who's a nationalist is a Nazi. And yet, to the left wing in America, they've conflated the terms into having you, so you could believe that anyone who is proud of the flag, proud of the nation's history, proud of the culture, proud of the language, is somehow a bad person. Think very carefully before you smear whites with that label, or else you'll fall down to the level of Jeff Zucker on CNN.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. 646 or SwissAmerica.com. Now that I've been sleeping on my Casper mattress, I pick it over every other mattress I've ever owned. It helps me get the best night's sleep, period. Once you try Casper, you're never going back. You're never going to love anything but Casper again. See, Casper's a high-quality mattress at an affordable price. You'll sleep cool, comfortably every night because they have unique combinations of foams which provide the right pressure relief and alignment. And, by the way, Casper comes right to your door for free in a small, how did they do that size box? They'll even pick it up from you if you don't love it, refund you everything from its engineering to its packaging to letting you try it in your own house for 100 nights. It's no wonder Casper has over 35,000 five-star reviews of all their products across Casper, Google, and Amazon. So put Casper to the test in your own home for 100 nights, risk-free. Go to Casper.com. But you must use code SAVAGE to get that $50 towards the purchase of select mattresses. That's Casper.com, code SAVAGE, to get that $50 towards the purchase of select mattresses. Casper.com, terms and conditions do apply.
More.
For many years, I've been warning the Savage Nation about a secret war on cash by big government and big tech to steal both your money and your privacy. Well, recent reports confirm that this war is expanding like wildfire, and time is running out to take action. Would you please not become the next victim in this battle? Please discover how to win the war to destroy your hard-earned savings. My good friends at Swiss America have detailed all the dirty little government secrets in their updated report. It's free. It's called The Secret War on Cash, Part 2. It's available now by calling 800-289-2646, 800-289-2646 for this important report, The Secret War on Cash. This documents real-life events such as banks refusing to cash checks, cash being confiscated from innocent citizens, and much, much more. Don't delay. Call now, 800-289-2646, and you will get your free copy of The Secret War on Cash Part 2. Call 800-289-2646 now. You probably heard it by now because I've told you about it. Maybe you heard it elsewhere, but hackers exploited a security vulnerability at Facebook, and it potentially exposed the personal information of nearly 50 million accounts. What attackers did was they stole access tokens, which they could use to take over people's accounts. Access tokens are like digital keys that keep people logged in, so they don't need to re-enter the password every time, right? Facebook says they fixed the vulnerability and informed law enforcement. And with your personal info from a data breach, criminals can open accounts, file tax returns. They can buy a property. There are so many threats in today's connected world, and just take, 1 weak link and bingo, criminals get in there. Good thing new LifeLock identity theft protection adds the power of Norton Security to help protect against threats to your identity and your devices. We all know that no one can stop every cyber threat, prevent all identity theft, or monitor transactions at all business. We know that. But new LifeLock with Norton Security can see threats you might miss on your own. Would you please go to LifeLock.com? Would you please call 1-800-LifeLock and use promo code SAVAGE for an extra 10% off your first year, plus a $25 Amazon gift card with annual enrollment. Once again, that's 1-800-LifeLock, code SAVAGE, or LifeLock.com, promo code SAVAGE. Terms do apply. And now back to the news. Anchor baby population in U.S. exceeds 1 year of American births. It's on the top of MichaelSavage.com. Read it yourself. Study the data. Now, how could you celebrate this? How can you celebrate this? Trump targeting birthright citizenship with executive order. We know it'll be rejected by a wackadoodle left-wing fanatical social engineering judge, and it will go to the Supreme Court. And the good news is it's now our Supreme Court. That's all you got to remember. Don't be upset when some anti-American judge takes it upon him or herself to reject Trump's desire to eliminate this national disaster of birthright citizenship and wipe out the 14th Amendment, because it was never intended to open the floodgates to the entire world. Never. And look at what's going on in California, New York. Anchor baby population in the U.S. now exceeding 1 year of American births. How can you celebrate that when they can bring in their whole family with that one baby? How can you celebrate that? Look at what's going on in our schools. Take a look at what has happened to the level of education in California. I told you when I moved here in 74, it was once the highest in the whole country. It's now amongst the lowest in the world. All because of Jerry Brown and the left-wing fanatics who have put their own greedy desire for power above that of the state and the nation. And it's only going to get worse. The mass hysteria continues as they hoodwink you into thinking that you're a white racist if you want America for Americans. Nothing can be